So not too long ago, we were doing only 14, and so this was our logic, and of course you can pause the video, but we thought, well, as we iterate through, if it's not a 1 and it's not a 4, actually what we thought was we'll essentially assume that the array does in fact have 1 or 4s, and as every element in the array. And of course, if it's not if any given element is not a 1 or a 4, we'll set contains to false, and we'll just never change it back to true, which would of course achieve our cause. But another thing here, and this is really, really cool, but and this is just, again, just different types of logic spinning around, but so we'll iterate through the array, right? And of course we know the manner within which we know the manner we employ to iterate through the array. We use a for loop. And the idea here is we'll have a count variable. Okay, int count is equal to 0. Again, what we want is we want 1s or 4s to essentially we want 1 or 4s to be in the array. It can't be any other way. So if nums of I, which is of course any given element referenced by the index, is equal to 1, then we will increment the count 1 variable by 1. Otherwise, if nums I, which is of course any given element referenced by the index, is equal to 4, then we'll essentially increment the count 4 variable, which we actually don't have yet, but we will now. And yeah, so that really fulfills the cause. Now, what are we trying to do here? We're not trying to keep count of the 1s and 4s. We're in fact trying to judge whether or not each and every element in the array is a 1 or 4. So if you think about it, we just kept track of how many 4s and 1s there were. If in fact each and every element in the array is a 1 or 4, then the count should equal the length of the array. What do I mean by that? Well, there's 1 4 here, and 1 4 here, and 1 1 here, and 1 1 here. So there's 2 1s and 2 4s. So if I were to add the number of 1s and number of 4s, if in fact the entire array consists of 1s and 4s, then it should be that if the number of 4s, if I were to add, if I were to say, okay, if count 1 plus count 4, well, that's not gonna be, so that would just be me taking, yeah, so if I had 2 4s and 2, I'd just be adding 4, yeah. So if count, let's see here. If count 1 plus count 4 equals the nums.length, then I could be safe to return true, right? Else return false. Yeah. Which of course gives me what I want. But of course I could do this one other way, right? So I could say, I could do it this way. So one efficient way I could do this is I could reduce this here, and I could just return the statement itself, right? And I would still get the correct answer. Or I could do this. I could say, well, look, I'm going to have a variable. I'm going to merge this together. I'm going to have a variable called count14, and that's going to be equal to 0. It's not actually count 14. It's count 1 4. But if any given element in the array is equal to 1, or any given element in the array is equal to 4. So it can either be a 1 or a 4, but if it's either, then I will increment count 14 by 1, or count 1 4 rather. And what I'll say down here is I'll say, look, if count 1, 4 is equal to the length of the array, which is of course nums.length, which resolves to the number of boxes there are, then I'll just return this. It'll either return false or true, which of course still gives me the right answer. So if anything, I think this would be a more efficient way of doing the question.